Welcome to the Stories Told podcast. This is episode 135, Spiders Rising. This is the Stories Told podcast. Two authors talking about stories in movies, TV, and of course, books.
I'm Michael Grayford. I write action-adventure stories in fantasy and sci-fi worlds, sometimes for younger readers and sometimes for adults. And I try to always inject at least a little bit of humor.
And I am author E.W. Barnes, and I write action-adventure, time travel novels, and space opera science fiction. Thousands of years, thousands of worlds. But be forewarned, beyond here, there will be spoilers. Are you ready for the adventure? Let's begin. Welcome back to the Stories Told podcast. I'm author E.W. Barnes, and with me is author Michael Grayford. And today we're talking about the story told in the novel Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And before we jump into that, I wanted to let folks know that Mike and I have decided we're going to take a break over the holiday period. Right now we're recording this in early December 2025. And so we're going to take some weeks off. So heads up, there will be a few weeks where we don't have a fresh new podcast coming in. Please feel free to explore our back catalog of podcasts. There's a lot of fun podcasts there from great stories, great movies, great television. How are you doing today, Mike?
I am doing great today. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And what's new in your writing world?
New in my writing world? Not much. I think I'm going to try to create a plan for next year and then get back into things.
Yeah, okay.
that's going to be my big goal.
And I bet it's going to feel really good getting back into it when you decide you're ready.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I have not done much in the way of writing either. It's been mostly just, doing the holidays and preparing for the holidays and preparing for the holidays and doing the holidays and all this. So I do have it blocked off. As regular listeners know, I am the Uber for my offspring's college career, and that will be ending soon for the semester. So that opens up a lot of time in my schedule to jump in and start doing that writing. And as we've been talking about, I have 2 short stories that I am going to be doing for my time travel series before I move on into my science fiction series, my space opera science fiction series in January. So like you, one of the things I'll be doing this month is those short stories and planning what's going to happen in January, just doing some brainstorming and make sure I can hit the ground running when January happens.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you. Have you encountered any interesting stories in books, movies, or television?
Let's see. I haven't, not so much stories. I've been watching this British show called Taskmaster. I don't know if you heard of it.
Okay.
It was actually recommended by another author on, I think I saw it on Facebook. Guy named Jason Pargan, who he wrote this story called John Dies at the End, which they made into a movie. And he's written a number of books. But anyway, he's recommended this show a few times. And it's this show where they get 5 comedians together and they have them do these ridiculous tasks. And it's a good show. It's funny because, they're all comedians and they're always goofing around and doing strange things. But the interesting part of it for me, and this is the reason that the other author recommended it, was it's interesting to see how each person tackles the different tasks that they're given. And they have certain rules that they have to follow. But what you learn as you watch more of the show is the people who are often most successful at doing the task, like a lot of times they're timed or something like that, are the people who find the way around the rules. Like, well, this wasn't stated as a rule, so I'm going to do this, right? Like, who are looking on the outer edges, right? Like the sideways kind of thinking. So I really like that aspect of it, and it's a funny show. Not really stories, it's a reality show, but it's funny.
I call that wagon wheel problem solving.
That's great.
Coming at it from a variety of different spokes on the wheel to get to the center of which is the solution.
And you have these creative people,
right,
each coming at it from their own way, and it's just very cool to see. And it's a good reminder to push the limits that you think are upon you that may not actually be upon you.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what streaming channel is that on?
I think I started watching it on Pluto TV, but I think the
Okay.
whole series is on YouTube, actually.
Oh, okay.
That's where I'm
Great.
watching it now, is on YouTube, so you can
All
probably
right.
find the whole series there.
Perfect.
Have you encountered any interesting stories recently?
I am still reading the 5th novel of the Stormlight Archive. It is so far very good. And what else? Not much else. I've been watching a couple of Nova specials on the International Space Station, which have been fascinating, kind of going into a
Oh,
more documentary route. It's
yeah.
kind of sad because they're going to retire the space station here at about the same time that the next book of the Stormlight Archives comes out.
Oh, I thought it was even sooner than that. I thought it was like next year or something.
No, they're planning to retire it in 2030.
Okay.
And I realized that's going to be a really sad time.
Yeah, it'll be an end of an era.
Yeah, exactly. It really will
Hopefully
be an end of
there'll
an
be
era.
something better to replace it.
Yeah, something else new on the horizon.
Yeah,
So,
something maybe on the moon or a better station or something.
and I think that's pretty much it. The Ghosts took a break over the Thanksgiving holiday, which
Oh, okay.
was a little annoying.
Yeah.
This is the time that I'd like to relax and watch this really funny sitcom. And oh, nope, they're not
Yeah.
doing an episode this week. It was kind of like, well, what?
Uh,
Honestly, I'm thinking, is it a way to make the series last longer? Or is it a way to avoid ratings drops because people are watching football instead of comedy? I don't know, but
yeah, maybe. Well, it's the last season. I don't think they're worried about ratings at this point, right?
maybe not, yeah. But it was inconvenient to me, darn it.
Yeah, that's why I'm waiting for until the series is done.
You're
I'll watch the
so
last season.
smart. You're so smart. Maybe I'll just wait for that to end. Well, and then I'll watch the rest of it.
Yeah,
So,
watch
yeah,
them all together.
exactly. There's plenty of fun Christmas movies to watch now. So I'll maybe pull those out and start watching.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
Are you ready to talk about Children of Time?
Yeah, let's dive into it.
Okay. Today we're talking about the novel Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I'm going to read the blurb on the back of the book. The last remnants of the human race left a dying Earth, desperate to find a new home. Following their ancestors' star maps, they discovered the greatest treasure of a past age, a world terraformed and prepared for human life. But all is not right in this new Eden. The planet is not waiting for them, pristine and unoccupied. New masters have turned it from a refuge into mankind's worst nightmare. Now 2 civilizations are on a collision course and must fight to survive, as the fate of humanity hangs in the balance. Who are the true heirs of this new Earth? Did you enjoy this novel?
I'm very mixed on this book. There's some things I really like and some things that didn't really resonate with me. I'll start with the things I liked. Right off the beginning of it, I thought it was interesting to start the book with a seeming protagonist, Rana Kern, who is an unlikable psychopath. Really, she has no empathy. It's all about her aggrandizement and, her supposed legacy. Yeah, that was an interesting choice. And you can tell she's brilliant, so that's something to grab onto at least. But I thought that was bold to do and kind of interesting, and it pulled me into the story pretty quickly. And then once we get going with the humans versus spiders, basically, spoiler alert, obviously, I like that the spiders definitely had a feel of a different civilization than humans.
Yeah.
A lot of times we get fantasy races or alien races, and they feel like just like a subset of humanity, right? It has this one aspect of human behavior. And the spiders felt very different. They felt like, okay, let's take these spiders as their society exists here, and then let's start extrapolating what that might be on a different planet. I thought he did that really well, and it was interesting. I thought it was smart to use the names of different types of spiders over multiple generations. So we had the Portia and we had Bianca over time. So it gives you something to latch onto from one generation to the next. Otherwise, it would just be, here's this other random spider, right? It's like, okay, this spider is kind of the science spider. This spider is kind of the warrior spider. So doing that, I thought was really, really smart. It's kind of like what we discussed about in the 3 different age ranges of Empire in the Foundation TV series, right? You have those characters, even though they're different people, they kind of carry over from one generation or from one time period to the next. So it gives you something to hold on to. I thought that was smart. And then similar kind of thing here. I kind of liked how we see the development of the human civilization through time, and it's falling apart and declining, particularly in contrast with the rising, advancing civilization of the spiders. I thought that was interesting. I liked how the spiders found a way to use the ants, which were, a deadly threat to them, in a way where the ants were kind of slaves. In a way, they sort of took over their communication system, but they also used them to sort of further their technology, which I thought was an interesting idea. There's a lot of interesting ideas like that in here. And I liked how spider technology felt so unique to them, right? It wasn't following along the human path of inventing the wheel and going through all the things that we did, and how their communication was based on sensing vibrations through webs rather than talking like we do and writing like we do. So I thought there's a lot of interesting things like that. I liked the idea of the understandings that they had where they could pass on knowledge genetically. I thought that was a really cool idea. And I like how it ended with cooperation between the species and learning from the best parts of each other. Kern sort of won, but at the same time, she still has to deal with humans, which she's not happy with, which I thought was funny. Her monkeys, as she calls them. Well, not her monkeys, the other monkeys. Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. It was an interesting ending. So maybe we can talk more about that as we go on. But I want to hear things that you liked about this story.
Well, like you, I thought the world building was absolutely brilliant. It is so beautifully textured. And let me back up and say the world building on Kern's planet, or the spider planet, is so beautifully done. I mean, it felt more real to me than the scenes with the humans on the Gilgamesh. That part seemed almost two-dimensional in a way, and not as vivid. It seemed in my mind, it's a very monochrome kind of environment when we spend time with the humans in that part of the story. Whereas the spider environment is, technicolor and vivid and layered and dimensional and really quite amazing. And I think from that standpoint alone, this book is worth a read, because that level of creativity is quite brilliant. And I think people should spend some time with this and really sink their teeth into, no pun intended, sink their teeth into how beautifully constructed the world building is in this story. I disagree, because I found the duplication of the names of the spiders a little confusing. So I'm not sure I totally agree with that. But I do think that the characters of the spiders were well developed. Each spider was different enough that you could kind of figure out, it wasn't like it just a repeat of the same story as the generations went on. And a repeat of the same character. Even if it was a repeat of the same name, it wasn't a repeat of the same character. And I think it comes from exactly what you just said about these genetically carried understandings, essentially genetic memories that the spiders had, which do two things. One, helps differentiate the characters as you move through the generations of the spiders. And two, makes it feasible in terms of, does this make sense as a science-y story? That the spiders would evolve so quickly because of the mysterious, DNA enhancement that Kern created and these understandings. So I thought it had two ways of really making the story make sense with that genetic memory that gets passed along from generation to generation. So I thought that was really good. I liked the tension with the ants. I thought that was fascinating. Yeah, there's a lot of, like I said, the place I like to be when I was reading the story is with the spiders. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff about the spiders. So that was kind of fun to be with. And for people who might be afraid of spiders, If you're really seriously afraid of spiders, don't read this story. But if you're just mildly afraid of spiders, this story isn't like heavy on with spidery stuff such that it's kind of creepy. It's just sort of interesting and fascinating, actually.
Yeah, it's more civilizational. It's not intended to be horror, really.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a civilization with different animals. Yeah. So let's talk about what we might have changed or done differently as writers.
I would have changed a lot. But my writing style is just very different, and the things that I read are very different.
Yeah.
Some small things, I wouldn't have had Kern refer to the humans as monkeys because it got unnecessarily confusing with the fact that she was trying to have her own monkeys evolve. So it's like sometimes when she would talk about monkeys, I'm like, is she talking about her monkeys or is she talking about humans as monkeys? That just seemed unnecessarily confusing. I would not have done that. And the whole setup for the story is kind of silly in the sense of why wouldn't we be evolving humans rather than some other species? But that's the setup for the story. So, you go along with it. That's fine. I thought that this is another small thing. I thought that the spider males rising up and demanding equality, while that's a relevant and relatable topic, for me, it undermined the fundamental differences in the species that the writer was setting up. It felt like an allegory for the reverse situation in humans, right? Where it's like the females are trying to get more power and become more equal to the males. That's fully understandable. I don't think that was necessary in this book. And like I said, it removed the distinctions that he was trying to make with the spiders in making them feel like more of an alien type of mentality. And to me, that sort of brought it back to, oh, look, they're becoming more human-like. And I didn't need that. The ending to me felt very Star Trek, where there's a quick conflict and then everything is resolved in the last minute. In this case, the humans basically had no part in resolving the conflict. And it ultimately made me feel like so much time was wasted on the human story because they were just changed at the end anyway, when more of the book could have been told from the perspective of the spiders, with the humans as a looming threat approaching them, right? Really building that conflict from their perspective more so than from the humans' perspective. And then we get to see the spiders as protagonists solving the problem of the humans coming. Because right now it's like he presented with both, but the humans played no part in it. They just got taken over, basically. They lost and got subsumed, which is fine. But I would have preferred that come from the spider side and have much less on the human side. And maybe part of that is also what you said, where it's like the spiders are just more interesting from a world building perspective. I'll get more into that in a minute. A bigger thing for me is the writing style, especially with the spiders. While it was cool from a world building perspective, it felt a bit clinical, especially early on. It felt like I was reading a documentary more than a fictional story with characters that I wanted to latch onto. I would have pumped up the emotion and brought us more into the mind and the feelings of those characters. I just wanted more characterization overall, which I realize is hard to get over such a time span when you're not carrying the same characters from generation to generation. But I think given the understandings that he set up, he still could have done that a little bit more, I think. I would have done that more, I should say. I shouldn't say what he could have done. He wrote the story he wanted to write. For me, that's one thing I would have changed. The biggest thing for me, it just so much felt dragged out on both sides, on the spider side and the human side. It felt very repetitive. I felt like a lot could have been edited from this story to make it move more quickly and be more engaging for me. It's like we're getting another generation of Portia and Bianca, and we get another time period where Holston wakes up from cryosleep again, and there's another revolt going on. It just felt so repetitive. I think you could have cut out probably 2 of those at least, and it wouldn't have affected the story at all. So I think it needed a lot more editing for me. Like I said, it's like a lot of this is just my taste. I just wanted it to move more quickly. Okay. I was less interested in every single step of the process and more interested to see where it was going and what happened then. And maybe that's part of the reason the ending felt so quick to me. It's like I wanted to see more
Yeah.
of that. Honestly, for me, this would have worked better for me as a novella. I think. It's like I think the story was interesting. The world building was really cool. It just felt too dragged out, too repetitive. That's it.
Okay.
And I think just trimming would have made it more engaging for me. But I know for a lot of people, this is their favorite book ever. So what does my opinion matter? It's just my opinion. What would you have done anything to improve it for you, or like what do you think? What do you think about my thoughts?
Well, I'm going to argue about the element of the spider males. And the reason that I'm going to do that is because I believe it was a necessary step towards getting us to the ending that we got to. Because the whole idea at the ending was that the spiders were like, we do better when we work with potential conflict as opposed to fighting against conflict. We do better when we absorb it and learn from it and incorporate it into our own civilization. And so for me, the males are going to be the same way. If they don't see the males as potentially valuable for working with and absorbing into their society in a particular way, then they're not going to be able to do that with the humans. And so to me, I thought that was a necessary component of the sort of the collaborative evolution of the way spiders approach problem solving, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That's interesting. For me, I think that would have worked better had that come after they merged with humans, to give them something still to work on. Like, oh, they merged with humans, and humans provided actually something useful for them to sort of evolve morally.
That's
Right
a
now,
great
humans just
idea.
got taken over and they didn't do anything,
The other part of it, like you, I agree. There was some repetitiveness to it that I think could have been cleaned up. I found, like I said before, I found the parts with the humans to be not as interesting and to be kind of disappointing. These were not great examples of our species, such that when you get
Yeah.
to the end, you're kind of thinking the spiders did not get the better end of this deal.
Right.
Well, the humans got saved and the spiders got whiny people. I think I love what you said about, maybe keeping the focus entirely on the spiders and having the human threat sort of looming in the distance without actually having to learn much about the human people. Or alternatively, what I might have done is made the humans a little bit more heroic so that even though they're being saved, they have something of value to give to the spiders in return.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I did kind of wonder, in the end, you're glad, oh, yay, the humans are saved. Yay, that's great. But you've invested yourself so much in the spiders, you're kind of wondering, are you sure?
Yeah. Well, and the humans were kind of, they were constantly fighting and bickering and just straight up falling apart, right? The civilization was pretty much gone and declining. These were the last remnants, and they're headed for death. They're headed for doom.
So, which, if you think about it, doesn't really make it a true collaborative coming together.
Right.
If the humans are that desperate and the spiders are in such the position of power that they are able to, save the humans, it's not really, the power differential significant. And to me, I think it's not really a happy ending in a lot of ways. It's not a collaborative coming together.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. That's true. I do think the ending was interesting. I will say that. I was curious to see where the story was going, and that was a good take on it. I would have liked to have seen more build up from the spider side from that, because he was definitely dropping clues throughout and kind of what the spiders were doing. I just would see like a little bit more at the end, so it wasn't just a complete surprise. I don't know. For me, I guess I would have wanted to do one of the two things that we said, either less of the humans and more seeing it from the spider's perspective with the humans as a looming threat, or like you said, the humans have something more to offer and you have a little bit more, you're more invested in them, right? They're seen as more heroic or something like that. Yeah, either one of those would have worked, I think.
Did you come up with any themes from Children of Time?
For me, the theme I got was cooperation and communication will always win out over competition and
Yeah,
fighting.
me too. That's exactly the same thing. Collaboration is the superior problem-solving approach. Yeah, I had the same thing. So, as a writer, what do you take away from Children of Time?
For me, I think even when exploring science fiction ideas, which this is clearly a science fiction story, right? The big what if and where things will go. Remember to personalize it with characters that the reader will be interested in and can get behind, because I found some of that missing here, particularly on the human side. I wasn't really invested in a lot of those characters. But also the spiders, because they're changing generations, so it's kind of hard to latch onto them so much. But I think they could have been a little bit more. So that's what I got.
Okay. And I had the value of really good world building. That's essentially what carries this story forward. And I agree that it's really important to have that characterization so that people can root for somebody. We've talked about that before in multiple podcasts about how important it is to have a character that you can get behind and root for them. But if for some reason that fails, world building can sometimes carry a story. And that's what we have here.
Yeah, and I think that's more common in a lot of science fiction stories, right? Like heavily on world building and exploring the what if scenario.
Thank you for joining us as we talked about the novel Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. A huge thanks to our Patreon supporters and all our listeners. Your support noticed through every like and every share means the world to us. If you enjoyed today's themes, here are some further readings. Michael's Tales of Zara series was inspired by the Arabian mythology of 1001 Nights. Start with the Golden Scarab of Balahar, an enchanting quest that will captivate readers who love magic, wonder, and strong heroines. Links are in the show notes if you're curious to explore more. The Stories Told podcast is on all major platforms. Please like, subscribe, or follow to help us reach more story lovers like you. For book, TV, or movie suggestions, subscribers can drop a note on our YouTube channel, and that link is in the show notes as well. You can find Michael Grayford at michaelgrayford.com and E.W. Barnes at 1000years.com. As a reminder, we're going to take the Stories Told podcast on a little bit of a holiday break, and we'll start publishing episodes again in January. Thanks so much, Mike. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. A very interesting story.
Yeah, it really was. And we'll see you next time on the Stories Told podcast.